There are right now 10 teams who are 0-2. Every team on this list is 0-2. These are the 7 teams through 2 weeks who have already been eliminated from the Super Bowl picture. First, the Cleveland Browns, who I believe were the worst team coming into this season. The Cleveland Browns are absolutely done.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Josh Heupel, I mean, please, dude, you got to be kidding me. How do you lose this game at home when you've got Georgia on the ropes with a iffy quarterback at best there in Gunnard, and you somehow figure out a way to lose that game? A game, Donnie, which was pretty much in hand for Notre Dame, 3/4 of it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
And welcome into the Early Line here on the SportsGrid Network as we get ready to, well, try to figure out exactly what did we just see here over the last week in the NFL. It closed out last night in epic fashion between the Lions and the Ravens. We're on to week 4 here. What did we learn? What didn't we learn? Who is injured? Who's not? There is a lot to discuss there. Not to mention college football. Week 5 going to prove to be the put up or shut up week here for a lot of teams in the AP top 25. And we got plenty of Major League Baseball the final week of the regular season. Still some teams trying to figure out, will they or won't they be in the postseason? I'm Joe Ranieri, joined by Adam Kaufman. And you got to love it. This time of year, Adam, is where we also have NHL preseason underway, which means that's just around the corner. College basketball is a little over a month away. The NBA, it is a beautiful, what do they say, beautiful time of year right now as we get ready to close out September. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, can't beat it. Obviously, we got the Ryder Cup right around the corner. There's a lot to invest in right now, and certainly a lot to watch.
Yes, there is. Let's dive into some of the biggest stories here in our 7 and 7. And of course, we'll start with last night and the dismantling of the Ravens defense, something that many of us didn't think were going to happen. We knew it was going to be likely a higher scoring game. 38-30 was your final there. The Lions get it done, but they didn't get it done throwing the ball all over the place. They got it done just manhandling the trenches against that defensive front of the Ravens. Over 200 yards rushing. That proved to be the difference in the game. And the Lions now, well, they're 2-1 in Baltimore. Well, they're 1-2 on the season, Adam.
Lions outgained the Ravens on the ground by about 150 yards, and I will remind people Derrick Henry still exists. Unfortunately, this version of Derrick Henry, Joe, not the one you want. About 75 rushing yards combined over the last 2 games. Now 2 costly fourth-quarter fumbles in 2 of the 3 games this season. He's fumbled in every game. Ravens are looking kind of fraudulent at the moment against teams that are on their level.
Not good for the 49ers, as this team over the last couple of years just the injury bug is crazy. Like, light some sage, do something here, the 49ers. Another one you can add to the list, and this is a big one here, as Nick Bosa. It has been confirmed, torn ACL, out for this season, maybe part of next season. That defensive front, I mean, my goodness, great win over the Cardinals, but is it realistic to think the 49ers without a Nick Bosa can actually get it done this year? It's just amazing to me how injury-ridden this team has been.
Yet they still find a way to win, right? Obviously Mac Jones has even come in. I know he's banged up now. Brock Purdy should be on the way back, but he's found a way to win games in place. So, you look at all the offensive injuries that they have sustained, and there are many, but defensively, you wanted to avoid taking some hits. And Nick Bosa, as you noted, is a monumental one. Second ACL tear of his pro career, third in his life, second time that he has been nicked up there on that right knee. And like you said, he's out for the remainder of this year and maybe longer. It's a monumental loss defensively. He has been a big part of two of those wins that they have already had with game-saving sacks. And so I don't know what youth they have on that roster and experience on that roster that can compete at his level, a defensive player of the year level. But next man up, you got to find a way.
Well, the schedule is favorable enough. We'll see if they can get it done, but hard to replace a Nick Bosa there on the defensive side. Going to be, listen, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you need as much offense as possible because the defense isn't going to stop anybody. The problem is, looks like CeeDee Lamb, not good here. Left ankle injury, and it looks like not only will he not be available for the upcoming Packers game, but we already heard from Jerry Jones yesterday saying that not only Lamb, but their rookie starting guard, Tyler Booker, also going to miss some time with a ankle sprain. Not ruling out a trip to IR, but yeah, this offense just got a little less potent now if CeeDee Lamb isn't going to be available to them.
Could be 3-4 weeks that he's out, as you mentioned, and that is significant. Now we're going to be looking toward Dak Prescott and his connection with George Pickens. And again, this is why you go out and you bring in a guy like Pickens. Brandon Cooks was not your ideal number two in calamity and worst case scenarios where you don't have CeeDee Lamb. I'm not saying Pickens is Lamb. He's not even close, but he's capable of at least being a reliable pass catcher, getting a lot of chunk yards, guy that can move the chains, guy that can pick up some games. He can have some 100-yard games, but yeah, he's not going to give you what CeeDee Lamb does. You just need to find a way to kind of stopgap this thing. But the bottom line is, as you said, the defense is so bad. I don't see how Dallas is winning shootouts when you don't have CeeDee Lamb. You need both those guys, and they don't have enough firepower right now.
And, well, I mean, shootout. You can't win games if you can't get to double-digit points, which is a problem of the Giants here. 2 out of the 3 games, if they're not playing that Cowboys defense, has been inept offensively. And Brian Daboll not committal to Russell Wilson being that starter this week. So could the Jackson Dart era be upon us here, Adam?
It's coming. I don't know if it's necessarily coming here in week 4. Not that I would be surprised by it. This is the Brian Daboll playbook. As soon as he is non-committal to his quarterback and starts to suggest a change is possible, usually a change is looming. We saw it led to the benching and eventually release of Daniel Jones last year, who, as we know, is tearing it up with Indianapolis right now. They've already begun working in Jackson Dart with specific packages that fit around his skill set. So it's not like Russell Wilson is playing 100% of the snaps as it is. I still think, even though, don't get me wrong, Russ is not the guy. You drafted Jackson Dart for a reason. I just don't know if it fits their timeline to throw him in yet. They're 0-3. They're bad. They were going to be bad. Just depends how desperate they are and whether Daboll feels like he's coaching for his job.
Listen, what do you got to lose at this point besides your fan base for the rest of the season? So maybe sooner rather than later. The ACC finally goes, wow, this looks like to be a trend. Maybe we should hop on board. They are now moving towards a 9-game conference schedule, which is good. They're going to force an extra Power 4 game in there, but we already saw the SEC do this. We already saw the Big 10, Big 12. They already play 9 conference games. Yeah, one less cupcake, one more, interesting game at it would be good for the bottom line, no?
Yeah, not much to say here, Joe. Like you said, Big 10, Big 12, SEC already doing it. Like, bravo. Way to catch up,
Yeah.
ACC. It's your time.
Thank goodness, ACC. It's his time, too, at least according to 65-year-old Bruce Pearl, leaving college basketball. What? 42 days away from the season start, and he is passing the reins to his son as he looks to maybe embark on a political career, one of the truly great college basketball coaches and definitely a Hall of Famer.
Well, I see why there's a political career, because this is nepotism at its finest, Joe. Bruce Pearl, incredible career, but Stephen Pearl, who has zero coaching experience. I mean, always worked on Bruce's staff, but he's never been a head coach anywhere. I mean, he was a salesman not too long ago. And so to be given a 5-year contract right out of the chute, good on him. But this is monumental for a team that was just in the Final Four.
Rockets are going to have to be without Fred VanVleet. Big loss there with a torn ACL. But the good news is here, we've got plenty of Major League Baseball to go over. Final week of the regular season. We'll break it down next on the Early Line.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
Remember these names: AZ Fudd, Olivia Miles, Lauren Betts. Depending on who wins that lottery, that's going to depend on who goes what. If Washington wins, it's Fudd. She's from the area. If Dallas wins, they're going to bring Fudd to play with obviously Paige. If Minnesota wins, I think they go Miles with the point. If Seattle wins, they go with Miles, and the same thing with Chicago.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I was looking at it through my phone at first. I'm like, why is there such a delay? And why are we getting pitch hitters right away? Oh, the pitcher got thrown out for some reason. Maybe he hurt himself. But no, turning out and seeing a brawl was absolutely hilarious to let that one play out. Just the way it is sometimes in baseball. We don't get a lot of good fights and a lot of good brawls and anger, specifically from two teams that aren't going to the playoffs. So good on them for showing that moxie last time. But it's good to see a little bit of a brawl and a little bit of that passion here.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
If a game is on the line,
give me the Navy kicker.
Oh,
the guy's going into battle in 2 weeks. He can't make an extra point. Come on.
From a mindset perspective, yeah. I'm not. Listen, we thank them for their service. I love them. Okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if you have a bet and you have an academy kicker with a field goal or an extra point, you got to hold your breath.
27 yards.
27 yards. The kid shanked it from like 30.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
And welcome in the Early Line here on this Tuesday. We appreciate you stopping by as we get ready, of course, for the final week of the Major League Baseball regular season. Kind of crazy to think that's where we're at, but it starts with a full slate here today. I'm Joe Ranieri alongside Adam Kaufman. And when you look at it, Adam, it's been 6 months now of Major League Baseball. Kind of crazy here. And it's all going to come down to this final week where we've got 4 division titles that seem to be, well, we have an idea on who might win, but not really. We do have a pretty decent idea of who's in the postseason. It's just a matter of what order they're going to end up showing in, unless, of course, you are the New York Mets, who are trying to do whatever they can do to remain relevant here, because it's been a rough final month here of September for them. They went from, yes, it's going to be the Mets, to now, if it ended today, the Reds, because of the tiebreaker, they won the season series, would be in the postseason. So this is a huge final week for the Mets. And the good news is they get to take on the Cubs, who, quite honestly, tonight, Adam, have nothing to play for, although Horton is going for him against Peterson. Can the Mets put it together at Wrigley to get this done?
Yeah, if you want to lean into the desperation narrative, why not take the Mets at plus money? But I would say Chicago's at minus 120 for a reason, and that is the superiority on the mound, as you just said, with Cade Horton on the bump. But it's true. I mean, the Mets have been going the wrong way, for weeks on end at this point in time. They've lost their last 2. That, with the Reds' 5-game winning streak, has led to this tiebreaker situation. The only saving grace for New York is that you still have a half dozen games to play. All these teams are starting their final 2 series. And like you said, we got 4 divisions that are somewhat up for grabs. And the wild card races in both leagues are still coming down to the wire for a couple of teams that are on the outside looking in. And so if ever there were a team to at least take a flyer, invest in New York at again, a plus money situation, knowing that, I mean, your season is quite literally on the line. Not to say you have to win tonight, otherwise you're done. You have, you don't have any breathing room per se, but you know that this can go game to game for at least the next couple, depending on what you do and what the Reds do. I don't think that the Cardinals are going to pick up 3.5 games in 6, but still, this is getting sweaty. This is, a pressure time here for New York to respond. And you're also on the road, which is not easy. And the Mets have not been good outside of Citi Field this year. It's 31-44. And a Cubs team, to your point, they've locked up a playoff spot. They know they're going. They're, the top wild card team by a wide margin. They don't necessarily have anything to play for. I don't think they're going to lose that top wild card spot, but if it's something that they concern themselves with at all, then you do need to kind of keep the pedal on the metal for at least the next couple of days to lock that in, because you don't want to all of a sudden slip to number 2 if you go on a little few game skid here and all of a sudden you're visiting a team, San Diego in this case, in the wild card round as opposed to hosting the wild card round. You want that home field advantage for 2-3 games, whatever it winds up being. So, as far as the Mets, I could see the logic in making the investment. But if you're looking for me to sit here and tell you, yeah, you can trust New York, you can never trust New York. We haven't been able to trust New York in months.
Well, the Mets are going to need help, and they don't control their own destiny. But Cincinnati does, since they own the tiebreaker, and they've got a game against these Pittsburgh Pirates, whose season has long been over here, 29 games under 500. But, the Reds have been one of the more inconsistent teams, to say the least. But they've battled. Brady Singer on the mound, Johan Oviedo on the mound for the Pirates. He hasn't exactly been great since being reactivated off the IL. So can the Reds at home at the Great American Small Park continue to win some games down the stretch and steal the Mets postseason?
Well, not to sound, lazy with this take, but I don't see why not, Joe. I mean, look, Cincinnati is a good home team. It's won, it's 10 games over 500 home. Obviously, it's put together this 5-game winning streak. Before that, there was some mediocrity. There was a little bit of slumping, a little bit of up and down play, but now getting hot at the right time over the course of the final couple weeks of the regular season. As you said, Singer's a good pitcher, for by today's standards. And I don't mean he's, going to flirt with a Cy Young or even an all-star berth or something like that, but he is someone that has a sub-4 ERA, solid, good for a starting pitcher, back in an era that responds well to obviously pitching. And I think that, you need to. This Pittsburgh team sucks. Now, the offense has kind of come alive in the second half a little bit, which makes these games more competitive, but the pitching is not something you can rely on ever unless Paul Skeens is on the bump, obviously. So absent that, which you don't have tonight, as you said, with Oviedo, I think it's a good spot to just continue to ride the wave here with Cincinnati. I know there are a lot of people that don't like to jump on streaks mid-streak. Like, you want to be on it from the beginning. I don't want to be on it and all of a sudden it loses. Like, I don't think it loses tonight. I'd be fine hopping on. Now, if you don't like the minus 160-ish, I don't blame you. You could always parlay it with something else, some heavy favorite that you like, or even consider maybe a first 5 play and take it on the result, the run line at minus half a run just to win the first 5. You'll get a considerably better number. You could do that as well. But I like Cincinnati in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs, prior to winning 2 games over the weekend, the final 2 games of that set against the Athletics, prior to that, they had lost 12 of 13, 6 of their last 7 away from home. So it's kind of hard to say, the Pirates are going to play spoiler here, but Brady Singer has lost twice out of 3 starts against Pittsburgh so far this season, but he has been lights out for the Reds in September, just about a 2 ERA in his last 3 starts. So they're going to need him to show up big here tonight. So the Reds are at home. The Mets are on the road. You got to keep winning some games, and this is exactly what Rob Manfred of Major League Baseball wanted, meaningful baseball in the final week of the regular season. What about the American League? Can the Tigers or the Guardians get it done? What about the Red Sox and the Blue Jays? Got more to talk here as the early line continues on the Grid.
There are right now 10 teams who are 0-2. Every team on this list is 0-2. These are the 7 teams through 2 weeks who have already been eliminated from the Super Bowl picture. First, the Cleveland Browns, who I believe were the worst team coming into this season. The Cleveland Browns are absolutely done.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Josh Heupel. I mean, please, dude, you got to be kidding me. How do you lose this game at home when you've got Georgia on the ropes with a iffy quarterback at best there in Gunnard, and you somehow figure out a way to lose that game? A game, Donnie, of which was pretty much in hand for Notre Dame, 3/4 of it.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
All right, welcome back in the early line here on this Tuesday as the final week of the Major League Baseball season is here. Plenty still at stake for some teams. And when you look at the American League, my goodness, how have we gotten here with the Detroit Tigers? A collapse of epic proportions And the Guardians, give them credit. They never really quit on the season. Got rid of some pieces there at the trade deadline. One of the best closers in Major League Baseball has been suspended in a gambling probe, one of their starters also. And yet here they are with an opportunity at home to really put the nail in the Tigers' season. I can't believe it, but they got Skubal versus Williams today. Are the Guardians just going to keep rolling here? Skubal hadn't been great down the stretch here.
I don't think so. I don't think so tonight anyway. That doesn't mean the Guardians aren't going to keep rolling, overtake the Tigers at some point in time. I just don't think tonight is the night. I think ultimately, Tariq Skubal is a guy that obviously we expect to win the Cy Young Award by a pretty good margin over Garrett Crochet. So if you're going to do that, how about play like it? There's been inconsistency in Skubal's game. Last time out, the one run against the Guardians, these same Guardians that he's about to face over 6 frames, he was excellent. Game before in Miami, gets roughed up. Before that, it's a shutout, back-to-back 7-inning shutouts, as a matter of fact, against both the White Sox and the Royals in the AL Central. And so, here it's just Skubal needs to be Skubal. This is a guy who has an ERA barely above 2. Again, he's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, Joe, here, obviously. And your stopper needs to be your stopper. This is 6 straight losses. And, say what you want about how well the Guardians have been playing, and they've been exceptional. I mean, they are a team that deserves to be in the postseason, but by the same token, it has been a monumental collapse out of the Detroit Tigers, really going back to the All-Star break. This has not all happened just in the last couple of weeks. This team has been really bad or very inconsistent and downright not good for a stretch of months at this point in time. So I like the minus 150. I know it's a lot of juice, but I like the minus 150 on Detroit to win this game tonight. And for, again, the Tigers' best pitcher to be their best pitcher and to just stop the bleeding, get the win, allow themselves to refocus a little bit. What happens after that, we'll see. You don't have anybody else in the rotation that rivals Skubal, obviously, but I like him to get the job done.
Tigers were up as many as 10 games as of September 3rd in the division. And now that is not the case. Final 6 games on the road for them in this spot. So kind of shocking. But, in the other part of the American League, the Red Sox now are taking on the Blue Jays. Blue Jays still trying to clinch here, the American League East. The Yankees still trying to be relevant as well, maybe possibly overtake them. And just like that, the Red Sox are trying to cling on to a wild card spot. Giolito versus Gausman here tonight in Toronto. What are you thinking?
I've got no feel for this game, Joe. This Red Sox team, you would like to think, and maybe there's some Red Sox bias for me, you'd like to think that this team would figure out a way. The reality is, over the last several weeks at this point, couple weeks, 3 weeks, they haven't been able to hit. They're not driving in runners to scoring position, except when they come in flurries, when they'll put up a touchdown in a random inning. But generally speaking, a lot of futility on the bases, and the pitching has taken a step back. Even Crochet has not been as sharp. Bayo has not been as sharp. Giolito, who's on the mound tonight, as you said, not been as sharp. Now, this is a very important series for both these teams. The Red Sox are hanging on for dear life to a playoff spot right now with teams right on their heels. The Blue Jays, who had a pretty good lead, not a 10-game lead, but a pretty good lead there in the American League East, trying to hold on to this division. But the Yankees have been playing so well that this thing could go south. I mean, if the Red Sox, I don't think this is going to happen, but let's just say the Red Sox sweep this series, all of a sudden, Toronto's probably not leading the division anymore. You're probably at second place in the Yankees, and all of a sudden you're focused on, boy, are we going to even host a wild card round, or is Boston going to overtake us for that in the final 3 games? So the Blue Jays really have to take one here, if not 2, to maintain their division lead right now, the way New York has gone.
Going to be interesting. Final week of the regular season is upon us. Again, going to be fun to watch whether or not the Red Sox can clinch that postseason berth. Blue Jays, magic number is 4. Speaking of 4, yeah, we got week 4 of the NFL season also to talk about. We'll do that as the early line continues next on the Grid.
There are right now 10 teams who are 0-2. Every team on this list is 0-2. These are the 7 teams through 2 weeks who have already been eliminated from the Super Bowl picture. First, the Cleveland Browns, who I believe were the worst team coming into this season. The Cleveland Browns are absolutely done.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Josh Heupel. I mean, please, dude, you got to be kidding me. How do you lose this game at home when you've got Georgia on the ropes with a iffy quarterback at best there in Gunnard, and you somehow figure out a way to lose that game? A game, Donnie, of which was pretty much in hand for Notre Dame, 3/4 of it.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
All right, welcome back in here, the early line, as we have now officially closed the books on week 3 of the NFL season, which means it's never too early to start talking about week 4. And it begins on Thursday night. Short week for both these teams. Big NFC West battle here between the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, of course, we know, lost Connor, their big running back there. So injuries affecting a lot of teams here through 3 weeks of the NFL season. But Seattle had no problem playing Georgia Tech over this weekend there. Adam, you and I covered that game on In-Game Live on Sundays, but and they did look like Georgia Tech uniforms there, New Orleans, but I think Georgia Tech might have gave them a better game. But now they hit the road. They travel to Arizona, short week for both teams. I just don't like what I see from Arizona here, but I thought last week was a game they needed to have. It felt like this week was definitely a game that they are going to need to have of Seattle if we're going to take them serious.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the Seattle Seahawks, we know about the offensive firepower, obviously. There were some questions going into that most recent game. Jackson Smith and Jigba, what was the health going to be? He popped up late on the injury report with the illness, goes out, had a monumental first half, let alone an entire game, and Sam Darnold continues to lean on him. So I think that offense is in a pretty good place right now. I think we're seeing some inconsistency out of the Cardinals. Certainly Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. are not on the same page. Trey McBride continues to look good, but he has for multiple years, and they still don't win. You know, doesn't matter how many catches he has, how many targets, yards, all of it. He's still not helping this team ultimately win games, which, by the way, not an indictment of Trey McBride. It's just one guy is not everything. And this team has had so many issues defensively when it comes to, you know, sort of nut cutting time, if you will. You know, you have to find a way to win games, and they just can't quite get over the hump late in some of these contests. And now, you know, in this situation, the game that, as you said, come Thursday night is a virtual pick 'em. I mean, in some places it is a pick 'em. In other places, looking at it here, the Cardinals are as much as a 1.5 favorite. You know, as I dig deeper into this game, I'll have, you know, maybe a more convincing, lean toward it. I right now I see some value in Seattle on the money line. Never mind with the points. Obviously, when you're only talking about 1.5, I realize 1-point wins do happen, but I would rather just sort of take a flyer on Seattle there, right at even money, even plus money at some places, and see if the Seahawks can keep the winning ways going.
Yeah, again, usually when it comes to short weeks, I usually focus on the home teams if I like them. But what I've seen from Arizona doesn't lead me to like a whole lot of them. So that game is Thursday night, but we do have a big battle of 3-0 teams. Wow, one of these teams will register a loss finally between the Eagles and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, Tampa continuing to deal with a ton of injuries. They're hoping to get Wirfs back at some point there on the offensive line. But they did what they had to do against the Jets. They got the win. Baker Mayfield is a gamer. Philadelphia, kind of the same thing. I can make the argument where they've had to grind 3 wins out this year. Nothing has been easy for these two teams. Philly on the road in Tampa, 44.5. What do you think we're getting?
So I guess I'll put it 2 ways, right? And like you said, we have 6 undefeated teams. Soon there will be 5, if not fewer, by the end of week 4. But I think the sensible pick is Philadelphia to win, to cover in this game. Clearly, it's the better team. It's the deeper team. I know there have been some issues on that, really both sides of the ball. I think a little bit of inconsistency in the defense. The offense is largely overwhelmed, although, you hopefully we'll start to see more out of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert and all these guys as a unit, not just one-offs. Saquon is going to be Saquon. Hurts is going to be Hurts. I think Philadelphia does win this game. Now, all of that being said, Joe, if Philadelphia is leading this game by, let's say, 6 points or fewer, and Tampa gets the ball back with 2 minutes left, you better believe I'm putting some money on the Tampa Bay money line, because this is a Baker Mayfield that just, you can't count him out. It's back-to-back weeks with game-winning drives late in these games to steal wins. This Buccaneers team, sitting obviously at 3-0, absolutely could have that record, reversed at this point in time. I mean, they have just stolen game after game. It's unbelievable. The first week, a missed kick by Younghoe Koo that got him released by Atlanta was the difference in that game not going to overtime. Kind of a lucky win there for Tampa. And then again, back-to-back drives in the final 2 minutes to come away with victories, like wins stolen from the jaws of defeat. This Bucs team could be right there, with the Saints that we were talking about at 0-3. Instead, obviously, they find themselves perfect. And sometimes that's the makeup of a gritty, special team. And sometimes it's dumb luck. I think there's been an element of dumb luck, and Philadelphia is going to hand that team its first loss.
Yeah, it's rather be lucky than good. But, you look at Philadelphia, Rams, let's face it, that was a 1-point win. Let's take the, 500-pound bulldozer returning the block kick for a touchdown out. They were lucky to get that one done. 3-point win against Kansas City. Dallas was only a 4-point win. So it's a lot of close games for Philly as well. And that starts to take its toll on, I think, both these teams as this season progresses. But that should be a fantastic game. And then you got to have a big question about, are we talking about Daniel Jones as a MVP candidate? Well, I'll tell you what, if he goes to the Rams this week and does what he has done in the first 3 games he's played, yeah, we're going to have a different conversation about Daniel Jones the rest of the way here, because 1 game may be a fluke, 2 games, all right, give me a break. But 3 games now, and if he does it against these Rams, but the question is, can he do it against the Rams?
It's funny, I was just looking at the odds to see if he was there for comeback player of the year anywhere, and I don't even see him listed, so I guess he doesn't, meet the standard. I don't know, there's a narrative there in getting benched and missing time toward the end of the year and just sort of being cast aside. But no, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is probably going to run away with that award if he can stay healthy. Daniel Jones, he's not going to get my MVP vote. Not that I have an MVP vote, but if I did, Joe, but he is certainly made this conversation very interesting as to whether we take the Colts seriously. And by that, I don't mean as a potential division winner. I think going into the year, there were some people that said, I'm not sold on the Texans. I could see the Jaguars. I could see the Colts potentially stealing this division. So that wasn't out of the realm of possibility, even though obviously you could get a good number on it. But nobody would have viewed any of those three teams as a Super Bowl contender. And Indianapolis right now is looking like a team that is capable of making a long playoff run. We were talking about it over the weekend. They've rarely punted this season. More often than not, these drives are ending in points, whether it's touchdowns or field goals. The defense, I suppose has some question marks, and we'll see that play itself out over the course of the year. But what Daniel Jones, especially Jonathan Taylor, certainly Michael Pittman Jr., among others there in that offense, they have looked borderline incredible compared to expectation. These are not your typical household Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey type names. All due respect to Michael Pittman, who's been, a good receiver in the league for a long time, but and Jonathan Taylor, obviously one of the premier running backs. But this is a grouping that just people didn't see this realistically, and what they've done, it's been impressive. But like you said, you beat the Rams, that's real noise. You lose to the Rams, people are going to maybe pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're going to, again, great litmus test coming up in this week 4 of the NFL season. A lot of teams, in fact. What kind of response are we going to get? We're going to talk about a couple of more of these week 4 matchups, preview them out, see if we like any edges as the early line continues on the grid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
I would say a phenomenal year for the UConn graduate, as Paige Beckers could have came out last year to the WNBA, and she decided to come out this year. It would have been interesting if it would have been Paige or Caitlin Clark. I don't think it would have been as slam dunk as people think to go to Caitlin Clark.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid. It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. The Early Line on the SportsGrid Network as we are getting ourselves ready and looking ahead to week 4 of the NFL season. Now that week 3 is behind us, I'm Joe Ranieri. He is Adam Kaufman. And the big question marks coming up this week, Adam, are going to be about, well, how do teams respond to what just happened here in week 3? And if you look at what happened last night to the Ravens, Yeesh. Hello, defense. Do you have any? Apparently they don't, and it's a concern here. Now it's a short week, and now they got to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, who were able to Sunday night finally get off the schneid there, get their first win of the season. But the Ravens have to go to Arrowhead with a lot of questions and red flags. So what's going on here? Should they be the favorite on the road against Kansas City?
Boy, good question. I think ultimately, I'm frozen in thought because I want to say it should be a little closer to a pick'em. Doesn't it feel like it should be just a bit closer? Like 3 feels like a big number. Even if you want to say, yeah, Baltimore should be a favorite, feels like point and a half. It doesn't 3 to take them, because remember, this game, like you said, is in Kansas City. So if that were in Baltimore, effectively the odds makers are telling you the Ravens would be, 6, even 7-point favorites if we look at it the way that we have in recent years. And that to me doesn't make a lick of sense off of what we've seen lately. I realize that the Chiefs have underwhelmed, especially offensively. I mean, even against an atrocious Giants defense in prime time, they still struggled to put up points. It's a Ravens team that has no issue putting up points, but defensively, as we've talked about extensively on this show, they can't stop a nosebleed. And so I don't know. The line doesn't feel right to me. I see value in Kansas City, a team that should still, both these teams at 1 and 2 are going to have an element of desperation. I just think that if this means anything, both these teams by the end are likely there in playoff spots in one form or another. I just think right now Kansas City is the team that should be wondering, boy, are we going to win this division? This Chargers team looks legitimate. This Chargers team offensively and defensively looks scary. Special teams, all of it. This team is getting the job done right now. We should feel threatened. We need to go out and take this win and narrow this gap a little bit. The Ravens over in the AFC North sucks. It's a terrible division. I mean, I'm just pulling it up now. The Bengals again are 2-1. How long are they going to survive, as you mentioned earlier, with Jake Browning? Because we know Joe Burrow is out for an extensive period of time. And even if it is not the Browning factor or a trade for a Kirk Cousins or somebody else, you've got all sorts of issues with your defense. That defense is not going anywhere unless it finds a way to improve rather rapidly. And Pittsburgh, I realize 2-1, but that is absolutely, it could be 0-3. You steal one from the Jets in week 1. This past game against the Patriots that you won by a touchdown, you did so a game in which the Patriots turned the ball over 5 times, including twice in the red zone inside the 5-yard line. That is a game that the Pats absolutely gave away. And so this Steelers team, I've been saying for a while, I think Pittsburgh is this is the year the Mike Tomlin streak ends and it's not a winning season. They win 7-8, they miss the playoffs. The Ravens are going to go on their run at some point, and they are going to overtake these teams, and they are going to win this division. The path is not as clear in a competitive AFC West, especially if you believe that the Broncos are still to be taken seriously. So I'm going to lean into KC in the desperation and take Kansas City with the points, and even say that the Chiefs are live to win this game.
Chiefs at home has been not once now, but twice in a season has been an underdog. I haven't seen that in a very long time. We'll see what they can do there. And then the Cowboys are back home, and the Packers, after just giving the game away to the Browns, got to go back on the road and take on, 2 teams coming off of embarrassing losses. What are we going to get with the Packers and the Cowboys? No CeeDee Lamb here.
I would like to see a response out of Green Bay. I mean, you can't implode. You can't fall apart the way you did in the final 4 minutes there against the Cleveland Browns. Fine, you allow a field goal, but to then a touchdown and then get a potential game-winning kick blocked, and that is taken back to field goal range, and you walk it off again, just to fall apart against such an inferior team, a team that you were favored by 2 scores against, and to lose outright. And so now it's a bad team, bad defense, and like you said, down its best offensive weapon in CeeDee Lamb. I know it's not easy to win in Dallas, obviously, but I think you're getting the Cowboys at the right time, and you're getting a little extra anger and urgency out of the Packers. I like Green Bay to not only win, I would say take the points as well. Lay it.
Yeah, and I'm never a fan of laying a touchdown with a road team here, but I'm not even sure with that Packer defense. Are we expecting the Cowboys to have enough points to even come close to this thing up and over? Or are we looking at maybe just another team total under? Because they don't look very good even offensively right now.
No, and that may be what it is. And I haven't pulled up what the team total under is for the Cowboys. But yeah, if you're getting, let's call it, I don't know, 18.5, 19.5, and you can go under that number, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they were actually Green Bay is a bigger favorite in this game than they were in the look-ahead markets here, because they had them at about a 3.5-point favorite. Now we're talking almost a touchdown favorite based upon what we've seen from the Cowboys here. And quite honestly, whose idea was it to schedule the Jets and Dolphins on a Monday night? The battle of 0-3 teams is what we're getting on Monday night. The good news is I believe there's a second Monday night game again here. Even worse, though, we got to watch Jake Browning throw the ball to the Bronco defenders at least 2 or 3 times in a game. Talk about an opportunity to bounce back here. Both the Broncos need a win. They got to get something going here. And the Bengals started off 2-0. And it has not been good since. No Joe Burrow, nobody walking through that door to save them. This is going to be a bigger game. We'll have to deal with the Jets and Dolphins, the battle of winless teams on Monday night. But at least we get the Broncos and the Bengals, and both those teams need a win in a big way. Speaking of wins, we'll have a couple of best bets for today's card. We'll do that as the early line continues on the grid.
Frank Reich is the head coach. You beat Stanford and that season to clinch that 10th win, the hottest team in the country. You can't keep them out, Joe.
So now Stanford, because they beat Boston College last week,
they're ranked.
Okay.
Notre Dame's in the top 25 today. They're going to have 10 straight victories. There's no way they stay out. Now, are you telling me that they're going to get tripped up by NC State?
NC State's
Devin Leary still there? I don't even know.
NC State, Dave Torrance there.
Sports Grid's College Football Today.
Mike McDaniel got a personal victory.
Yeah, he get fired on the tarmac. Okay, I can
yeah.
go back. Yeah.
Well, this has been my take on the Dolphins. I think you'll agree. The more they lose, Tyreek Hill becomes the most important player in football, because Tyreek Hill getting traded becomes likelier and likelier.
Yeah.
And Don, he's not going to get traded to the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
This is a guy who's going to shift Super Bowl markets if he is dealt.
Pro Football Today, only on Sports Grid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the third and the fourth spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire, only on Sports Grid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left on it for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.
All right, welcome back into the early line here on the Sports Grid Network as we look to wrap up another edition here. Joe Ranieri alongside Adam Kaufman. As customary here on each and every show, we do like to give a public a chance to chime in, and maybe, just maybe, we'll either back them or fade them? So let's check it out here with today's Fade the Public poll question. All right, and we are going to stick with Major League Baseball here, Adam, because let's face it, the regular season is coming to an end this week. But there are a lot of questions about who is that American League MVP going to be. It's been Aaron Judge, it feels like, since before the season started. But there's no denying that, Cal Raleigh has certainly, made his name known, his presence known here. And then now when you look at the price of each, I mean, it's kind of 50-50 here. I voted for Aaron Judge because I just think the media markets are different and Aaron Judge will continue to get the headlines. But what did you think? Because the public is not agreeing with me here. They like Cal Raleigh to get the award, or at least should be getting the award. What do you think?
So I voted for Aaron Judge also, simply because I think that's the way it's going to play out. I think, like you said, there's the influence of the media markets. Now, if I were to acknowledge the other side, which again, obviously seems to be the public vote, and played the devil's advocate to the Aaron Judge, it's, there's voter fatigue. Judge has won before. I think this is not, a Vegas odds thing. This is not an algorithm. These are humans who have opinions that vote for these awards. And, they like seeing new blood. They like seeing a catcher pop off the way that Raleigh has with all of these home runs. And to, I think most notably, take Seattle potentially to a division crown. It's not locked up yet, but as we sit here right now, a 3-game lead on the Houston Astros, I think if we look at, this stuff matters, Joe. This isn't like Alex Rodriguez of the Rangers on a bad team, but with an incredible season winning an award. These guys are kind of in similar situations. Statistically, they've both had very, very good seasons, great seasons, and are playing for teams that are fighting for division crowns. I think if you see one of them win the division and the other one is in the playoffs, but falls short of a division crown, as a wild card team, I think that is going to be something that maybe is a bit of a deal breaker for a lot of people out there, for voters. So if Seattle should happen to win the West and the Yankees fall short just behind Toronto and they get the first wild card spot, I think that will have some people sway and lean toward Cal Raleigh. And so that's something to watch for down the stretch here. But if New York is able to overtake Toronto and, I don't know, there's a speed bump by Seattle, or even if there isn't a speed bump by Seattle and New York just does enough, I think at that point in time, you could see Judge again because of the comeback from where they were.
All right. Well, we got more Major League Baseball coming up today. So let's check out what our buy best bets look like tonight. All right, I'm going to start here because I'm going to go with the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox game in a pretty good pitching battle here tonight between Giolito and Gausman. And listen, it has not been a great stretch for Toronto offensively. They finally won a game against the Royals over the weekend, but they have not exactly been punching runs across. They're already in it, the postseason, that is. They got a little more work to do to win the American League East, but this feels about as playoff atmosphere as it's going to get, especially for Boston. I'm going to stick with the starting pitchers, Gausman, Giolito. I'm looking for fewer runs, under 4.5 tonight in the first 5 for me. And how about you, Adam? Something tells me you're going back with Detroit here, aren't you?
I am. I think Tariq Skubal and the Tigers get the job done. I've seen a lot of people out there in the space investing in the -1.5, right around +120 for Detroit. I don't blame people for doing that if you don't want to lay the juice and you think that the Tigers are going to win decisively. I'm just not willing to get there. I would go with the -150, play it a little bit safer, allow for just the 1-run victory. Skubal has dominated the Guardians over his last 9 meetings. 3-1, 1.65 ERA, a whip right around 0.8. It's a must-win for a slumping Tigers team. Your best pitcher needs to be your best pitcher here. I expect him to be the stopper, Joe.
Yeah, I am with you there. It's now or never. Great job, Adam. We appreciate you stepping in as always. The early line We're back again with a few new tricks tomorrow here on the grid. Enjoy the games.